Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Well, I'm blissed. You sound as if you're in a barrel.
Do I really? I haven't changed anything. Maybe John, our engineer at GCN, can do something about that.
I hope everybody else can hear you, but voice is very distorted.
John is okay. We think it's Dr. Shealy. I just talked with the engineer. So, Dr. Shealy, I can hear an echo at your end. Dr. Shealy, did you get a chance to watch the Clinton-Trump debate?
You got to be kidding! I wouldn't give you one breath to watch any debate, but especially with the bitch from hell.
So how do you really feel?
Well, I don't think we have enough time to tell you how much I really feel about that one.
Well, here's why I was asking you. You know, there have been reports on the internet about her health and her deteriorating health and how she's has to lean and hold on to things and she has to have a pillow behind her when she sits. If she's being interviewed, she demands her staff demands a pillow to support her back, and she holds on to things and she holds on to people, and there are aides around her who make sure she's okay and run up to her if they think she has a problem. And so my question was, during this alleged debate, this 90-minute televised event, I watched her, and I was very interested in watching her health, her behavior, her mannerisms, and she was excellent. I sorry to say that, but she delivered succinct points, hard-hitting punches. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to be at the other end of her words, because she was pretty rotten and mean. And Donald Trump was, pretty much a gentleman in almost all cases. But she was on the attack and kept him on the defensive for 90 minutes. And here's the point. That didn't seem like her. She would smile, and she was happy, and she was pleasant, and not the Hillary that I know, not the Hillary that I've seen for years.
You think it was
so the question? Well, I don't know. I don't know that, but it sure didn't seem like her. And my question is it possible to take someone who may have Parkinson's, someone who may have pneumonia and Parkinson's, someone who may have some other neurological maladies, and pump them up with something to make them appear to be like a healthy person, and then maybe the next day have it all crash down? Is that possible?
Of course.
Well, that seems to be what I saw.
Nothing like a huge dose of cortisone.
Really? Okay. So a huge dose of cortisone?
Yeah,
because
it could give you a temporarily boost.
Okay. She was really delivering very quick attacks, very brilliant attacks. And it seemed to me like someone was coaching her, or she had committed to memory all these attack points to beat up Donald Trump. She was very, very effective at it. And if you didn't know better, if you were naive, ill-informed, uninformed, you might think that Hillary Clinton was the one we want to be president. But I could see all through that, and I'm sure our class could as well. But the GDP, the generally dumb public, might not have seen that, and that's kind of disheartening.
Well,
but so the question was, medically, could she be pumped up?
Oh yeah, there are all kinds of boosts that one could give that could give you a couple of hours of energy.
Well, that's all she needed. She only needed a couple hours of energy. Now, What happens, Dr. Shealy, when those medical miracles, those drugs, wear off? What would we see? So
usually they rebound pretty much in the opposite direction, but by subtle pumping, if you will, it might be possible for them to keep her going for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Now, the rebound after that would be horrendous, but it's possible.
Okay, so my questions were of medical nature. Okay, well, I appreciate you telling us that because it sure seemed like it was a performance-enhanced behavior that I saw. I did not see the Hillary I expected to see. I didn't see
remember, the athletes use this kind of thing all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there are other things like, all kinds of athletes get dumped when they're found to be doping. It's called doping.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is there any way that we would be able to tell from her behavior if she was doping, or would it require some body fluids, blood?
Yeah, it would require a blood test.
Mm-hmm.
Or urine. You could do it in 24-hour urine, or even a spot urine would tell some things.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of people are on one side of this or the other. I don't know anyone on our team who is for Hillary Clinton. As a matter of fact,
no, that's not possible.
Yeah. So you don't know anybody who's for Hillary either, right?
Well, yes, I do. I have two sisters-in-law and my middle child. They are as far left-wing as I am libertarian.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We don't talk, but
when we used to vote, Dr. Shealy, and I'm not sure we're going to vote in this election because I don't know if my vote doesn't count because it's the Electoral College that will decide who will be selected as our
that's the biggest bunch of bull in this country almost.
Yeah, I think we should call those who are in the Electoral College that allegedly represent us. I think we should call them up and say, "Hey, just want to let you know. Now, this is the address I have for you. Is that still current? Just want to make sure." and how did you?
I'm trying to see how many I need to take a hit on you.
Oh, gee, and just want to make sure this is your current address because. Oh, by the way, how are you planning to represent our intentions here at the Electoral College? And I just want to make sure that I can save everybody a trip. Jeez.
Love you,
Oh man! So, Dr. Shealy, I was making spaghetti sauce yesterday, and I kind of like spaghetti. For my whole life, I've liked spaghetti, and I remember Dr. Norman Shealy talking about gluten and using gluten-free pasta. So, I was making some spaghetti sauce, and I was thinking, I wonder how Dr. Shealy makes spaghetti sauce. Do you have a recipe that you would like to share with us that would be healthy, nutritious, good for us, and maybe even tasty at the same time?
Well, I start with virgin olive oil, and next I put into that a couple of cloves of crushed garlic and a sliced and diced onion or two, And then I add beefalo, ground hamburger type meat, and I stir all of that up and let it begin to brown. And as soon as it gets to the earliest stages of browning, then I add a very thick tomato sauce. I can lots of tomato sauce. So let's say I might put in a quart of a thick tomato sauce. And then I add a few bell peppers that are also canned or frozen. And then I cut up depending upon how many people are going to be eating, maybe 6 or 10 inch long piece of smoked beef and chicken sausage, and a little oregano and some black pepper, and I just let it simmer for a minimum of 30 up to a couple of hours. That's it.
Okay, and obviously you do not use an aluminum saucepan, right?
Oh no! In general, I cook this in a big cast iron frying pan.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear how you make it, and so I wrote down your recipe, and it's the same exact recipe that I have, literally, except one ingredient we substitute. We use Black Angus beef instead of beefalo. We raise Black Angus,
well,
and we raise beefalo.
And as long as it's farm raised, it's good.
Mm-hmm. So that was virgin olive oil. We use extra virgin. I assume that's what you meant. Raw onions cut up, diced, 2 cloves of garlic, tomato sauce, bell peppers, frozen is what we use. Let's see, a little bit of black pepper, oregano, and there's one other thing that you put in. Oh, oregano. Yeah, same thing. Same exact thing. Now, do you grow your own spices, Dr. Shealy?
I don't. Unless you call bell peppers and things like that spices. And,
I was thinking basil, oregano.
Oh, yeah, I do basil.
Thyme. Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's my favorite.
Okay. And what I like in the summertime is basil, extra virgin olive oil, a little bit of vinegar on cut tomatoes on top of gluten-free noodles, cold.
Right.
Absolutely great lunch. Toss it. It's a great lunch, and it's almost free. Almost free. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back. Dr. Shealy, I'd like to talk about acne. And I read a post that says acne sufferers can live longer than non-acne sufferers. We'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, yesterday we had the opportunity to discuss the alleged debate, and our number one, right into it very early, we mentioned that it seemed like a medical miracle that Hillary looked so good and performed so well. And headlines on the Drudge Report, I looked at it before we went on the air, and this headline wasn't there. But shortly after we reported it, a Drudge Report came out with the same thing. I'm not saying that the Drudge Report listens to us. I'm just saying that it and we came up with the same conclusion. And the headlines yesterday said, medical miracle. She stands for 90 minutes. And there's a picture of Hillary at the podium. So I just wanted to share with you that we're not alone thinking that this was enhanced performance. Any comments on that before we go into acne?
No, I think it's almost certain that if they, from what you said, that they use some kind of drug, which in Olympic sports is forbidden.
Yeah, and I don't think there is any prohibition against doping or drug using
in politics.
Prescription compounds in politics, right? It seems like anything goes in politics, especially including not telling the truth.
Right.
And there was a lot of accusations about not telling the truth. But I was very surprised during the debate that with all the attacks that were made on Donald Trump, there were some attacks about his wealth. And he never said, by the way, Mrs. Clinton, my research tells me that 5.7% of the Clinton Foundation actually goes to charity, and the rest of it is like your piggy bank. Is that true? Or your daughter, Chelsea, doesn't look anything like like your husband. Is Webster Hubble her father? He didn't say that either. And what about your son-in-law, who lost 90% of his customers' investments in his fund? What about that? And what about your husband's zipper? Is it super glue that keeps that up? Or what have you done
no super glue
to work on?
Do that.
He's still at it. He's still the reports I read. He's still doing the best he can with what he's got. With other women. I mean, I keep reading stories like that. And Mrs. Clinton, I typed into a search engine, Clinton, deaths. And there are a whole bunch, over 80 people who have died, that were close to you. It seems like it's really a dangerous business, being your friend. What about that, Mrs. Clinton? So Donald Trump did none of that. Maybe he's waiting. Maybe he's waiting for round 2 of the debates to launch into that. And I hope that people realize how evil she is. She wants to tax us more. And the way she delivered increased taxes, people were probably smiling and saying, this is great. This is great. Yeah, I love it because, we need the government to have more digits, more of our hard-earned wealth. We need to turn that over to them because they obviously can do a better job than we can with it because we're drowning in debt. So, and then she talked about Trump's bankruptcies. And she's presiding over one of the largest the largest bankruptcy in the history of the planet, which is the United States bankruptcy. We are bankrupt. And she is part of it. And she has been for years. And then I was thinking this morning, Doctor, I'm kind of on a rant here. I was thinking this morning, so let's say a typical person might be fortunate enough to live to 80 years of age. And so we had Barry Soetoro in the White House for 8 years. That's 10% of a person's life. And then we had the Clintons for another 10%. That's 20% we've had these thugs in the White House. Then you put the Bushes in there. Pretty soon you realize we have been run over for most of our lives by these politicians.
Actually, we've been run over for a minimum of the last 103 years. Since the blank, blank, blank Federal Reserve was unconstitutionally created.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when we come back, Dr. Shealy, can we talk about acne sufferers living longer? Their telomeres seem to be longer. And is that possible? And that was reported at King's College in London. We'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. NormShealy.com, NormShealy.com. Medical doctor, surgeon of the year, brain surgeon, author of over 30 books, broadcaster, and Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. And Norm at NormShealy.com if you'd like to email him. Dr. Shealy, acne sufferers, I've read, tend to live longer than those who do not have acne. And it says on this post at the telegraph.co.uk, for many years, dermatologists have identified that the skin of acne sufferers appears to age more slowly than those who have not experienced acne in their lifetime. And they suggest that the whole body ages more slowly. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Shealy?
Well, I read the article, and it's all over the internet. And, hey, halitosis is better than no breath at all, and this is one of those situations where, what seems in teenage a significant liability is long-term a significant health benefit. And apparently it is some genetic predisposition, so the two go together. I thought maybe it had something to do with the well, it probably does have something to do with the pituitary, hypothalamus, endocrine system, but they didn't go into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed they didn't go into much detail as well. Dr. Shealy, have you noticed that the young people, let's say in high school, where you've attended, people you know, who like the guys who could grow sideburns faster than the other guys, the gals who physically developed breasts faster than the other gals, they seem to age faster than the others. Have you noticed that when you get to see them 20, 30, 40 years later?
You know, it's so hard to tell because I don't, well, the people that I know best, I didn't know when they were, until they were in graduate school. Mm-hmm. In other words, I don't know anyone from my high school class.
Okay.
So I haven't been able to check that. I can tell you that of my 82 people who graduated together in medical school 60 years ago, only 32 are still alive.
You know, I read many years ago that the average life expectancy of a medical doctor is less than that of a truck driver.
Now you're quoting one of my least favorite people.
Yeah, and how can that be true?
It's not true. I spent 2 years getting the facts, and that is one of the biggest lies in his book. Mm-hmm. The average physician actually outlives the average American by 2 years.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, that would make sense to me.
He had him dying something like 20 years younger.
Yeah, like 57.
Yeah, but that's ridiculous. He that's an absolute lie.
Great. It's great to have clarification on that. Now, it would appear that of all the professions, being a medical doctor is one of the most stressful. Is that true, Dr. Shealy?
Well, yes and no. In people with a graduate education, it is one of the more stressful.
Well, what I'm thinking of a guy like our friend Dr. Sergey Sorin. He must have, he's in the emergency room, and they don't call it the emergency room for nothing. I mean, it's life and death all the time.
Well, that's certainly the most stressful field in medicine as well.
Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, how, that was one of the questions I have for you today, Dr. Shealy. As we head toward the abyss, we're closer and closer toward the abyss, the collapse, the chaos, the financial collapse, the supply chain collapse, the power grid collapse, the radioactive fallout, all of these bad things that are happening. We're surrounded 360 degrees by all of these threats, toxins, poisons, and so forth. As we get closer to the ultimate collapse, and I believe it's certainly within my lifetime, and the lifetimes of our class and instructors, how do we cope mentally, knowing this, and then when it happens, how do we make sure that we make decisions clearly, effectively, rationally, and don't do stupid things and make stupid mistakes that could cost us our lives? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think first of all, it comes from being organized and prepared. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that personality, you're going to be in trouble. I mean, it's that simple. There are people who, live moment by moment, and there are those who plan decade by decade, and that's the difference. Unfortunately, in my opinion, a majority of Americans do not fall into the organized, prepared personality category. And that has gotten infinitely worse over the last 60 years.
Conscientiousness. Comes down to conscientiousness, yes?
Exactly. That's what it's all about.
I was thinking about... Go ahead, Dr. Shealy.
Well, if you don't have it, you could develop it, but it takes a tremendous amount of effort if you didn't develop it by the time you got out of high school.
And that makes a lot of sense, because it seems there's so many people I have tried to talk with over the years to explain conscientiousness in terms of preparedness, in terms of survival, in terms of keeping our families intact, through tough times. And most people say, look, if it gets bad, I'm just going to go out to eat. I won't have it in my refrigerator. Yeah, I get it, but I'll just go out to eat. They don't understand that the guys who would be serving them and cooking for them and waiting on them at the restaurants aren't going to have anything to eat either. And there's not going to be any supplies in the restaurants, and no one's going to work. They don't get that point. But, it's hard to argue with someone who just says, no, it's going to be, don't worry about me. I'll just come to your house, or, I'll just go out to eat. I don't know how to fix that. So pretty much when I get to that point, I go, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, you do that. Dr. Shealy, I've noticed that there is possibly a common thread among many of us at USA Prepares, the instructors, and probably those in class today as students. And that is that we are not afraid to move. We're not afraid of change. And I think man is generally resistant to change. If they do something and they like doing it, they just keep doing it. That's why we shop at the same stores, at the same gas stations, go to the same barber or beautician to have our hair cut or dyed or whatever we have done to it, go to the same doctors, and we go the same way to work every day if we're fortunate enough to have a job. But I have a feeling that one thing that is common or somewhat common among our instructors, this loose group of people we call, this loose association, I should say, of people at USA Prepares, that we're not afraid to move. I've moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, back from the West Coast to the East Coast, moved from Virginia to Missouri. You moved from Wisconsin, right, Dr. Shealy? And so you weren't afraid to...
It was like Australia, Cleveland, Boston, Missouri, South Carolina, North Carolina, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm wondering if those, I don't know if you'd call them traits, lack of inhibitions to moving, to relocating, to moving where you hardly know anybody, if you know somebody, are aligned with preparedness. Having less fear of some of the unknowns. Just saying, you know what? I know we can do it. I know it'll be okay. I've done the research. I mean, I don't think we blindly just move from one place to another without knowing. I think we do the research and then we say, you know what? We've got enough information. I think it's going to be just fine. Let's go do it. But I don't think there are a lot of people who are willing to do that, Dr. Shealy.
That's true.
Have you found that?
Let's face it. With everything in life, there's what's called a bell curve.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very small percentage of people who fall in the lower end of the bell curve, and they die off quickest, if you will. And then there's a very small percentage in the upper part of the bell curve, and they're the ones who live the longest, if you will, and survive best. And then the great majority of people up there at the top, they get by.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And in that line of thinking, I read your your email about the cost of being a couch potato. It's darn expensive to sit there.
Isn't that interesting? I mean,
absolutely. Would you share that with us, please?
Medical costs every year are excess $2,500 for those who are couch potatoes. Now, even if you can afford the medical insurance and take care of it, just think of the suffering. I don't care how long I live. but I do care that I'm healthy while I'm getting there. And the idea of a chronic, debilitating, dwindling illness, any of them, from diabetes to cancer to coronary artery disease, every one of them, it's a drag. I don't want it.
Yeah. $2,500 a year in extra medical expenses. And then it goes on to say, assuming they will die not later than 70 and suffer innumerable disease problems, is it talks about 125,000. It's an enormous amount of money that we're talking about.
Right.
Bring it back, Dr. Shealy. I'd like to share with you a little assignment I gave my class when I was teaching elementary computer science in college. Back in the 1990s, I was asked if I would teach a college course in computer science, and I would consider this an elementary course. And so I was teaching applications like word processing, spreadsheet, database, things like that, the operating system of computers, and some of the hardware. And so one of the assignments that I gave my students was to construct a spreadsheet, and they wanted to know what we could construct a spreadsheet about. And I said, well, how many of you smoke? And some of the hands went up, and I said, so I said, well, okay, great. So how much does it cost to smoke? And, I was Columbo at the time. And so I heard, well, maybe $5 a week, maybe even $10 a week to smoke. I said, well, let's find out. Let's use this spreadsheet application to see how much it actually costs. So let's put down, do you buy a carton of cigarettes? How often do you do that? And do you ever have do you ever run out and you have these emergency trips to the gas station to buy a pack of cigarettes? Well, let's put, how far is it to the gas station? And let's put in the cost of that trip to the gas station plus the exorbitant price of the cigarettes at the gas station, are way, way, way overpriced. And do you ever drop ashes on your car seat? Does it put holes in the car seat? How much does it cost to fix that hole in the car seat? And your sweater? And do you ever burn holes in your shirt? And what about being absent from work? How many of you are paid by the hour? Do you ever get sick? And you think you get sick more often than others who don't smoke? So how much does that cost when you're absent from work, and so forth? So this spreadsheet, it appeared that it was just going to have one item in it, buying cigarette cartons once a week, and it became kind of a long spreadsheet. And what they found out was this $5 to $10 a week was actually over $1,000 a year, and that's without dying early. So, Dr. Shealy, I just wanted to share with you that we may think that we're doing something that's really not so good for us, and we may lose 7 years of our life for smoking a little bit of cigarettes, or maybe 14 or maybe 21 years. But there are other costs as well. And then there's the secondhand smoke, and those in the family are getting sick, and all that. So there are costs of smoking. And I asked you in previous broadcast, can you smoke habitually and be well? And what is the answer to that, Dr. Shealy?
No. Not possible.
Not possible to smoke, to be an addicted smoker and be healthy.
No.
Okay. Let's see. There was a man I was reading about, Dr. Shealy, on the internet, and this guy had some erratic behavior. So a call goes into the police. He's a 30-year-old black man in San Diego, and he was outside of a San Diego in front of his sister. The cops came, and he was acting erratically, and to keep him from hurting himself, they killed him. They shot him. And the police collected the cell phones of everybody they could find in case there was some video. And the cops were put on, 2 cops shot him. And one used a taser and one used bullets. And they killed this man. And my question to you, Dr. Shealy, first of all, I would say, Never call 911 in a situation like this, because this is the kind of thing that happens over and over. This is not the first report of this. But what could cause a person to act erratically, as described by the police? He was acting erratically. Could it be dehydration? Could it be excessive heat? Could it be over medication? Could it be drug use? What could it be?
All of the above. Any one or more.
And maybe if a person is acting erratically and he's not pointing a rifle or pistol or a shotgun at someone, maybe the police should say, tell you what, you seem like you're confused. Why don't we all sit down? Instead of aiming their guns and killing people. How about that? And that's the kind of thing that leads to these violent protests and fires and looting. Dr. Shealy and I will be right back right after these few short commercial announcements, and I'd love to learn about the sapphire crystals that you're offering on your website, Dr. Shealy. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. A couple quick announcements. October 1 and 2, there is a preparedness expo in Kansas City, Missouri, the rkpreppershows.com. Link on the website, USA Prepares. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is going to be there. Craig Douglas. Norman Cantwell will be there. Matt Stein will be there. I will be there. And I might see a few other instructors there as well. And so Matt Stein, Rick Miller, Craig Douglas will all be presenting seminars. So will I. I'll be speaking for 2 days, as will Matt Stein and Rick Miller. So if you'd like to see us there, that's the KCI Expo Center in Kansas City, Missouri, October 1 and 2. And also, if you happen to be in Wichita, Kansas, or Farmington, or Murfreesboro, Tennessee, you can go to a gun show. You can go to a gun show, rkshows.com. And let's see, that's Wichita, Kansas, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and Farmington, Missouri. That's October 1 and 2. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. And let's see. Dr. Shealy, when I get on my tractor, and let's say I am mowing hay or raking hay or baling hay, or I have to turn around so that I can, watch the equipment as, I go forward and I look forward and I look backward and I look to the left and right. And I'm really busy. And I turn my head around to a great number of degrees, at about 90. And I'm wondering, for those of us who do not turn our heads to the left and to the right, do we slowly lose that ability to be able to, turn our necks and our backs?
Do you always answer your own questions? You bet. The body was made to move, Vince. Inactivity. Hans Selye, the great stress physician, 60 years ago, essentially demonstrated that going to bed for a week, which is total inactivity, is as bad as breaking your leg, as stress is concerned. Wow. So the couch potato syndrome is a serious, serious problem. And the more you move, the better your health. I mean, again, when I don't get but 60 minutes of exercise a day when I travel, but when I'm home, I get planned 90 minutes every morning. I finish 90 minutes, usually not later than 7:30 in the morning. And it's, some of that is fairly vigorous movement. I mean, it's not like what you do. But because I don't have that all-day activity that you have, I have gradually over the years, and for many, many, many years, and I've always done some kind of exercise, but I get up and I spend 90 minutes, some of which is vigorous, and it's essential. Mm-hmm. And I like it. What
about stairs, in homes? we have a 2-story house, and there's a landing. You go up 3 steps, and then you turn in 90 degrees, and you go up the rest of the steps. And if I'm not mistaken, it's close to 16 steps vertically to get from the first floor to the second floor. And I remember my wife's grandmother, who lived almost to 100, and she attributed her long life to, eating right, of course, and having stairs in her house because her bedroom was on the second floor. And even in her late 90s, she would insist on going up the stairs every day because she felt that it helped her stay healthy. That exercise and she lived in an old Victorian house, probably built in the 1890s, and a tall ceiling, so she had more stairs than the average new home. And what are your thoughts on that, Dr. Shealy?
Oh, no
having
question.
Stairs.
That's great exercise. Bouncing up the stairs is even better. But climbing up slowly, is good. Anybody who does not do movement 30 minutes a day is really as bad off as someone who smokes a pack of cigarettes a day.
Interesting
There's a good
analogy.
comparison.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting. What about animals, Dr. Shealy? I know you have a couple puppies there, and some cats and some beef. What is the significance or the importance of having animals and that we love and who are part of our family, who spend time with us, who love us? What is the importance or significance, if any, to being healthier? Is there?
It raises oxytocin. Every time you look out and just look at the animal and smile because of a feeling of appreciation, love, whatever, you get a little burst of oxytocin.
We have a bottle calf in our backyard.
Right, and that takes even more, it does take more effort. It provides more stimulation for you.
Well, it's fascinating because this calf was wheezing. And this was our first experience with a calf who sounded literally like a donkey.
Right.
So this guy with every breath was wheezing. And so we thought that, he really is at a serious disadvantage being with the rest of the herd. So we put him in the pickup truck. He's, relatively, maybe a couple weeks old. And he got his mother's milk early on. And so we brought him home so that we could have him relax and not be in the dust as much and not be pushed around by the other bull calves. And so here he is at home, and we all want to go feed him. And it's, 3 times a day. And now his name is Derek, and he looks for us, and he wants his hugs, and he wants his head rubbed and his neck rubbed, and he wants those hugs, and he wants the affection. And it's a wonderful thing. I'd rather have him out with the herd, but until this wheezing stops, I don't want him to be at a serious disadvantage, for being roughed up by the rest of the guys in the herd. But it's a wonderful thing having animals. And just before the broadcast today, I went outside, and all the dogs ran up to me, and they're all at my feet. They all wanted their hug, and it's hard to hug multiple dogs with 2 hands. So
especially the size of your dogs.
So I'm hugging some with my elbows and the others with my hands, and then the cats want their hugs, and then the chickens are coming over. They don't want to be left out, and it's wonderful. It really is. And so if I'm watching a video with the family, we have a screen in the kitchen, and we'll watch a video or a YouTube video or something like that, and then everybody's there. All the cats, the dogs, they all want to be right there. And I find it fascinating They don't have to be there. No one's saying, all right, you guys, you're going to watch TV with us, watch the screen, you're going to watch a YouTube video. They seem to want to be right next to us at our feet. They want to make sure that they're being hugged. And it's really a wonderful thing. And I would encourage those who have not experienced that to get an animal that you can take care of and love, and in exchange will love you. And they have feelings, Dr. Shealy. One of TJ did something that my son thought was not right, and my son scolded him. Just raised his voice just a little bit to let TJ know, that's not the thing you do. And I walked in, I didn't know anything about it, and I could see TJ's behavior was, he wasn't himself. He felt really bad about what he did, whatever it was, and I didn't know that he did anything. And I'm wondering what's up with TJ. He doesn't look himself. He looks kind of forlorn. So do dogs have feelings the way I just described, Dr. Shealy?
Oh, of course. Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, let's face it. My personal feeling is that dogs, personality-wise, are closer to people than any other land animal, at least. I mean, I don't know enough about porpoises to talk about them, dolphins or whatever, but yeah, there's no question dogs are bonded with people better than any other animal in general. And in my opinion, horses come second. Horses
That's really
are
interesting.
more, if they're properly raised and treated, are more bonded with people than cattle or other animals. But any animal can be. I mean, we once had a goat who became a house pet of one of our friends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it can be almost any animal, but dogs are certainly high on the list.
Yeah, and they're generally house trained, so they don't leave presents all over the house. That's
Exactly. It takes
like
almost nothing to house train a dog.
Right. And I don't think we can house train Derek. And he'd be. I explained to TJ. I was out there with TJ, and TJ is about 200 pounds, and this little calf is about the same size. And I said, TJ, you guys are same size now, but next week. Next week, he's going to be your big brother because the calf is growing. But the animals seem to get along. The chickens with the cats with the dogs with the cows, all of them with us. And I think, they might be enemies normally, but when they're raised together, they get along just great. When we come back, Dr. Shealy, can you share with us the sapphire crystals that you're offering for purchase from your website, the same ones that you provided that study at the meetup. Sapphire crystals coming up next. Dr. Norm Shealy, normshealy.com. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, normshealy.com. Dr. Shealy's a medical doctor. Dr. Shealy, sapphire crystals, can you tell us what they are, what they do, why you're interested in them, what you've learned, and so forth, please?
Okay, sapphire is the second hardest of all jewels, second only to diamond. Second, diamond does not have significance, but sapphire has very high piezoelectric ability. In other words, it can receive, store, and send electromagnetic energy, including thought. I have demonstrated beyond any doubt whatsoever that quartz and sapphire are superb, especially sapphire, for storing thinking. And as you know, we did a small but very statistically significant study with 16 people at the real meetup, and 6 of the people got sand, and 10 of them got crushed sapphire. And, of course, I programmed the sapphire mentally to be relaxing. That's all, just relaxing. And we did total symptoms for people getting all before, and a week later get a follow-up and repeated the total symptom index. Now, the total symptom index is 4 pages of every known symptom. But the first page is primarily depression and anxiety. And the people who got the Sapphire had a 93% decrease in depression and anxiety symptoms. Those who got sand got a 50%, which is almost 50% higher than normal for placebo. But to some extent, I think this is because the group knows me. In other words, I'm not a stranger coming in telling them about this, which would probably reduce it to 35%. But even so, difference between 50% and 93% is highly statistically significant at the 0.001 level. You know, one chance in 1,000 that it's not real. And so we've had hundreds of anecdotal repeats of that with people getting relief of anxiety and depression especially. Now, we're still working on how effective it may be in addition in decreasing calcification of the coronary arteries. We just don't have enough data on that yet, but it can't hurt. Sergey, my medical partner, who was only 40 at the time he began testing this, his total calcium score was low, 97, and decreased over a period of, 6 or 9 months to 1 in his calcium score. Mine decreased, but of course I was much higher, and so percentage-wise not as great. But the most important thing is, let's face it, anxiety and depression are the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 problems in the world. Almost 100% of illnesses have some relationship to how anxious and or depressed you are. And so by reducing those, the long-term benefits could be remarkably important and useful and helpful.
Dr. Shealy, without being specific to any individuals, you have offered this 4-page inventory of symptoms to many people. What is your reaction to what you have found in terms of depression and anxiety on this questionnaire that you've given before you do these studies?
Well, it is, I did have a statistician do the statistics to prove that it's statistically significant. And, people find it interesting. I think so far we've just begun to introduce this, and it looks as if it's going to be one of the most popular things we ever introduced.
Mm-hmm. What I mean, Dr. Shealy, did you find that people have indicated on these inventory questionnaires that they are more depressed than you might have thought initially?
Well, what surprised me with the group that we're working with is they had more positive things on that first page than my average patient. Yeah, that was surprising.
Great. Okay. When we come back, Dr. Shealy, let's see. How about living with an angry person? Let's say we made a huge mistake, and we wake up and we find out that our spouse is miserable. What does that do to us? Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and Dr. Shealy, I'm kind of chuckling because I was thinking about something I did many, many years ago, and it has to do with the subject of anger. So I reported when I was in banking at this particular time. It was a magnificent campus, and you could park around the building. It was truly like a park. And so I pulled into the parking lot. I would get to work about an hour early, just about every day. And I pulled in the parking lot, and the parking lot was kind of full. And I thought, gosh, I wonder what that's all about. All right, I put that aside, and I went in, and so I'm early. And I see a lot of the people in the surrounding departments in the lobby, and they just finished the meeting. And I didn't think much of it. And so I went to my office, and I reported to a senior vice president. But that day, he selected another person in the department to fill in for him. So he was a senior vice president, and he put an assistant vice president in his slot while he was absent for the day, and that assistant vice president handled this meeting. Well, that's when I realized that, I was supposed to be at this early morning meeting, and I wasn't there. So I missed this meeting. So I just went to my office and did my thing, and within about 15 minutes, I got the call from this guy, John, who was fuming that I had the nerve to miss this meeting. And so he's yelling and screaming at me on the phone. And I just said, John, you sound really, really angry. Why don't you call me back when you calm down? And I hung up the phone.
Vince, you are terrific.
So I'm thinking, why is this guy so mad? And my response was, I didn't really want his anger to impact my performance that day. I got things to do, and I didn't want to dwell on this guy yelling and screaming at me. So I cut him really short, and literally I hung up on him. I mean, that's absolutely something that you don't do. You do not hang up on, someone who is in the hierarchy above you. But anyway, so that was my reaction. I want to lead that into, so let's say, and I did not make this mistake, but I'm sure people have made this huge mistake when they wake up and they go, man, I can't believe I married that thing, and that thing is so angry and hostile, and it's destroying my health. Now, is that something that's true? Could being married to a person who is harboring anger, could that damage their spouse's health who would otherwise be in good health?
Oh, no question about it. Anger is somewhat contagious, and either it makes you at least irritable, anxious, or even angry back at them. And of course, a brief anger can be life-saving sometimes, but it's not healthy for anybody. Much as you and I unequivocally believe that Hillary is a part of the evil empire, etc., I'm not going to waste my life energy being angry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, it's as if I'm looking at it from a distance. I am not personally involved in the repulsion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's not much that we can do about it. And the word that you like is detached. Is that correct?
Exactly. No question about it. And that's my number one motto in life. Just detach from those things you cannot change. Now, if indeed the spouse, male or female, is truly an obnoxiously angry person, either they have to get help one way or another, or your best bet is divorce as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And on more than one occasion, I have recommended divorce to people. It's not my favorite activity, but, it's better than being killed by it.
Mm-hmm. And I assume that when you recommend divorce, you're talking about there's no fixing the problem. It can't be fixed.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, the reason it can't be fixed is the other person isn't willing even to think about some kind of discussion or counseling. Now, when you're in that situation and you are calm and detached and suggest counseling or a quiet discussion and they refuse, well, bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my reaction.
And you mentioned Hillary, and my understanding is that she's thrown White House furniture at Bill Clinton. Well, at least a lamp.
Damaging. As well as done equal things to Secret Service people.
Yeah. And I wonder about the trickle-down effect of having her in the White House and how that will cast a more sour mood over the entire country. And by the way, she did.
No, it will be the darkest days since the Civil War.
No disagreement. Dr. Shealy, we have Ted in Florida. Ted, welcome.
Gentlemen, thank you for taking my call. Dr. Shealy, I have questions about your sapphire crystals.
Ted, could you speak up a little bit, please?
Yeah,
We
thank
hear
you,
a lot of
Vince.
noise in the background.
Sorry, I've called before, and I told you that I work for the military industrial
complex. Are you on
complex.
a Bluetooth?
No, I'm on a, hold on one second. Okay, is that better?
Oh, yes.
How's that?
Yes.
Okay.
Much better.
Okay, sorry. It picks up a lot because like I said, I work in the shop and there's compressors and stuff. My question is, well, first let me say something. I'm really into the Ormus type of devices with the, I guess you can call it the piezoelectric effect, and I find it absolutely fascinating that you can get energy out of a crystal by just squeezing it. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. And believe it or not, I just made one yesterday. And I wanted to ask you, what do you do with your sapphire crystals? Do you ingest them? Is there a way to ingest them? I mean, do you hold it in your hand? I mean, do you put pressure on it via resins?
What you do is you create what I call a healing phrase. It should be short, no more than 7 words. And if possible, an image with that. And you hold it in your hand, and as you breathe in, you say and begin the phrase and the image and blow with your breath into your hand where you're holding the pouch with the crystal in it. Now, every one of the crystals is blessed by me, or our sapphire pouch crystals. Everyone is blessed by me, and I personally imprint it with, peace, calm, happy, something like that. Because I want it to go out with that as a basic information. Now, that is an American Indian medicine woman, Oshana, technique for imprinting crystal. And I've used that since 1988.
Interesting. Yes, I noticed that when I make the Ormus devices that I make, I keep them around my house because they dispel, I call it bad electromagnetic. I mean,
oh yeah,
I live in Florida, and I notice the weather is wacko here. Florida is like one of the most wacko states you could possibly imagine. I mean, they had the hanging chad here, for God's sake. So
right.
The thing is I've noticed that when a front comes down, when the cold fronts start rolling down here, there is an energy that comes with it, and a lot of times I see it affect people. I see, just like the full moon, I feel affects people because our bodies are water, and there's a pull, and I believe that's a proven fact. And so when I make one of these devices, I give it an imprint, exactly what you say. You think those things. You think peace, love, happiness, wealth, calmness. And as you make this thing, and I find that it seems to me that these things are actually alive. They feel like they're alive, and they have an energy to them that is pretty incredible. And
I think thought is part of living energy.
Okay. I see. Putting it into it, you're imprinting it. I see what you're saying. Yeah, but one thing that I do is I vortex my water. I've noticed a very interesting effect with that. I use a blender with a pretty narrow pitch, and I run 3 concentric rings around the outside of the blender with opposing poles of magnets. They don't have to be anything special. And I fill it with water, and I put a few grains of pink salt and a few grains of dead sea salt, which has a very high potassium content. And I've noticed some very strange effects. I heard this from a guy that's really into the Ormus type of stuff. His name's Ken Rolla. You can find him on YouTube. It's pretty interesting. And I drink this. One of the reasons why I drink this is because, of course, I've heard Dr. Richard Allen Miller talk about how everybody is dehydrated from these chemicals that I can't even say the word, these people that are spraying this stuff on us, and everybody is being micro-dehydrated. And so one way that I try to keep myself hydrated is I spin my water in a magnetic field with these minerals, and I've noticed an effect that is very unusual with it, where it gives you a sort of it's hard to explain. You have to experience it for yourself, but it's a kind of a psychic ability, not reading minds or anything like that, but you're just a little bit more sharp than you would be. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So
you're part, at least to some extent, producing almost water when you run it around a magnet.
Yes, and it's vortex, which I've heard Dr. Miller talk a lot about vortexing water and the whole thing with the torus twister thing. It's very interesting to research also. So, I mean, and one thing I wanted to also state too, I don't know if you guys know about this or not, because I noticed the chemtrail stuff in 1998 when they first started it. I didn't know what it was, but I noticed it then. I've been watching it since, because I'm a pilot. And I can I hold on?
Please do. And
Okay.
I've got a question for you, Ted, in Florida, that relates to magnets as well. And I'd love to know your opinion and your thoughts, as well as Dr. Shealy's, after your questions. We'll be right back. Class, Dr. Norm Shealy's with us, medical doctor, normshealy.com, normshealy.com. And we're talking about magnetism and structuring water with Ted in Florida. Ted, please continue.
Second question was, it's for both of you. Both of you may know this or not. Do you know of the red wine test that you can do in order to see the chemtrail fibers that are actually in your body? Have you heard of that?
Please share that with us.
Okay, Dr. Shealy, of course, is a doctor and been around for a while, and he would be the one to really want to look at this himself, because he's analyze it. And I was told that if you take, and I have done it, a good Merlot, because I think that if you see this, you might want to drink the whole bottle. You switch this maybe 3 to 4 ounces of Merlot or red wine in your mouth for 3 to 4 minutes. Just continually swishing, and then spit it into a nice, good, clear glass and take a good look at what you see. And I have seen red and blue fibers, and sometimes clear, into my glass. And they say for some reason this stuff continuously comes out of your gums. Why that is, I have absolutely no idea, because I believe it's nano. But it's something that you guys in your audience might want to look at. And I've heard it's a hoax. It could be fiber from the skin. I don't know. But I have done it, and I actually see this myself. So that's something I might want to look into.
Dr. Shealy, your thoughts?
Well, I don't drink enough to know. So,
I'm going to try it. We've got Merlot here at the farm.
Yeah, I just have to say that I'm not not opposed to people drinking it. I just don't have a taste for it.
I understand. Yeah, well, just for a test, Yeah,
I'm going to try it. I wanted to share with you, Ted, if you don't mind. You're talking about magnets, and I was thinking about magnets in our lives. And recently, I was working on an automatic transmission, and in the oil pan of an automatic transmission, there's a magnet in there to attract the metal particles away from being circulated in the oil. And then, of course, some oil drain plugs for engine oil have magnets attached to them so that they can pull the metals, the ferrous metals out of the oil to have the engine last longer. And I was thinking about, and here's a question for you and Dr. Shealy, what about putting magnets around let's say, a glass? And we're going to have a glass of water. What about having a band of magnets around that glass? Would there be any positive impact in magnetizing our water?
I believe there would. Now, running the water through the magnet, if you will, passing it across it, has a greater benefit, but there'd be some benefit just from the magnet itself. The magnets have a very great power on our brain as well. If you really want to quiet the overactive brain, a couple of magnets on either side of your head will do a wonderful job.
Do we need to orient them in any particular direction, south away from us or north away from us? Or
just opposites on the two sides of the head.
Okay, so have a north on one side facing
well, if you're doing
inward.
Front and back, I'd put north in the front and south in the back. But otherwise, side to side, I don't think it matters.
Okay. Okay. Ted, do you have any thoughts on that?
I heard that magnets can be used, actually, bar magnets. You can put them on your feet, and they increase your blood flow because your blood has a certain amount of iron in it, of course, and it causes some sort of an effect to increase circulation, I think it was, and there's some other health effect. I had a friend who had something called reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which is now Careful Jacobs Donald. And she did it, and it helped her. It did.
Very good. Ted, thank you. Thank you for calling.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vincent.
Thank you very much.
Until
Dr.
next
Shealy,
week,
very
everyone
quickly,
have a good one.
In the last few seconds, Dr. Shealy, can vitamins work if you don't have minerals in your body?
No,
Or do you need them?
they go together. You have to have them.
Vitamins and minerals required to optimize your body. Dr. Shealy,
Exactly.
thank you so much for being with us. See you next week. That's Norm Shealy at normshealy.com. NORMSHEALY.com. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.